Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the M8, Junction 5 eastbound, a serious incident has caused disruption. An M4 eastbound accident between Penlager and Langevelach will lead to delays. In York, a collision on the A64 eastbound closed all lanes between York South and the A19. Motorists should seek alternatives. In Essex, the M11 southbound between junctions 10 and 8 has lane closures due to a collision with delays anticipated until mid-morning. A broken-down vehicle on the M4 eastbound exit at junction 22 in South Gloucestershire also caused lane closures. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dramatic scenes in a North London street as police move in to arrest members of an organised crime gang. Inside their vehicle, evidence of a multi-million-pound trade in phone theft. A large number of stolen smartphones are discovered, all wrapped in tinfoil to block any phone signal and prevent their owners tracing them. After a year-long investigation, Scotland Yard says it has now dismantled the criminal operation that they believe is responsible for smuggling more than 40,000 stolen smartphones over to China. Officers have now recovered thousands of stolen smartphones as their investigation continues. Many of the handsets stolen in street robberies end up in shops like this. Officers recovered multiple stolen phones and arrested 2 men on suspicion of money laundering after finding £40,000 in cash.
But my warning to people that are involved in this criminal enterprise, whether it be shop workers, the shopkeepers, or even the faceless enterprise businessmen who own multiple different venues, is that you may have felt like you were acting with impunity and that we weren't coming after you and we couldn't come after you, and that actually the crime pays. So if eventually we do come, then that's just a business loss. Is that we are coming after you. We are going to come and conduct warrants, not just on your business premises, but we will target you at home, we'll target you in your cars. Nowhere is safe to conduct criminal enterprise.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I think for far too long in this country, millions of people felt as though they weren't represented at all by the establishment media.
GB News was needed because there literally was no other voice. Everyone was saying the same thing.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GB News exists to make sure those concerns are put forward and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends.
Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense.
Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good morning to you. It's 9:30 on Monday, the 20th of October, live across the United Kingdom, Britain's newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the Prince Andrew story rumbles on with a new police probe. The Met Police are looking into claims that the Prince asked a bodyguard to dig up dirt on his sex abuse accuser, Virginia Giuffre. Here's Andrew speaking about the Epstein scandal in 2019.
I've questioned myself as to why did I go, what was I doing, and was it the right thing to do?
And this is an extraordinary story. There's a huge manhunt after the police raced to find 8 pieces of priceless jewellery has been stolen in broad daylight from the world-famous Louvre Museum in Paris. Extraordinary story.
I think the question really for us is to make sure that the match can go ahead with all of the fans there.
Well, that was the Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, who says that Aston Villa's stadium cannot be a no-go area for Jews as pressure grows to lift the ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans.
An Islamophobia overhaul. The official definition of Islamophobia is set to be reworded and replaced by the term anti-Muslim hate.
And over to the Middle East, and Israel says it will return to ceasefire hours after carrying out strikes on Gaza. US President Donald Trump is still hopeful for peace.
It's going to be handled properly. It's going to be handled toughly, but properly.
Is the ceasefire still in place?
Yeah, yes.
Rural life on the ropes. GB News data shows that countryside pubs and shops are closing at a record rate. The president of the Countryside Association takes aim at the government.
I see no sign at all that this government is interested in rural policy. It seems to be working against us at every step.
Well, welcome to Britain's newsroom. And Tony Blair is in the news again, Andrew.
He just can't help himself, can he? So there's a book coming out this week in which he is going to say that the people who cross the channel on small boats should not be allowed to claim asylum. The cheek of the man. The reason, I mean, our whole immigration and asylum system is in chaos, partly because of that wretched war in Iraq, which caused massive disturbances in the Middle East. When, as part of our membership of the European Union, Eastern European countries acceded to the EU, most countries in Europe had a transitional limit. Yeah. He took advice on that and decided he didn't need to have a transitional limit. I remember Robin Cook, the Foreign Secretary, or whatever role he had then in the cabinet, saying there'd be 15,000 in the first year. It was 750,000. And I don't think this country's ever recovered.
No, and of course the problems that we're having with illegal migration all stem back to his decision to put the ECHR into our own British law and the Human Rights Act, which is why it's so difficult to get even 1 or 2 people to leave once they've arrived illegally. So, well, maybe he has had a change of heart and he'll be an advocate for leaving the ECHR, but
well, we'll
let's see.
Because anything to do with Europe and EU, he loves. So extraordinary. So that book will be coming out later in the week, and we will be talking about this.
Yes, and we're also going to be talking about his recommendations that taxes should be cut. So I wonder if Rachel Reeves will be listening to that.
Now, Prince Andrew, because we don't call him the Duke of York anymore, because that title is in abeyance, not gone, just in abeyance, faces a potential police investigation into claims that he pressured his protection officer to, quote, dig up personal details on his accuser, Virginia Giuffre.
Well, he could become the first member of the royal family to be investigated by the police for more than 20 years.
And let's just put in context how significant this would be, though. The last member of the royal family was Princess Anne, who was fined over some boisterous dogs. That was it.
So hardly a major offence compared to this.
All to a different scale. Let's talk to Andrew Lowney, who's the author of entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, and joins us on the show. Andrew, good morning to you. The House of York is crumbling, disintegrating. Has it got further to fall?
Yes, I think it does. I think we're going to see many more revelations coming out, not only from Virginia Giuffre's book, but another book called Blue Butterfly, which is coming out next month by another victim. I think we're going to see more leaks of Epstein material. I think we're going to see more legal depositions unsealed. And I think, clearly there are going to be people speaking on Capitol Hill, some of the victims. So I'm afraid this is only just beginning for the York family. I don't think that the response from the palace really has been sufficient to appease public sentiment. I think they want him to lose his title of Prince Andrew. I think they want him out of Royal Lodge. And I think they will welcome the fact that he is finally being investigated. I mean, there have been calls for him to be investigated both by the Met and the National Crime Agency now over the last 20 years. And let us hope that they are proper investigations and not whitewashes.
Just ask you specifically on Prince Andrew, because we know Duke of York has been put into abeyance and it's up to Parliament to decide whether he should be stripped of those titles. That would be quite a straightforward act of Parliament. But to take his royal title, Prince Andrew, off him, and my understanding, Andrew, is that the King would have to issue a letter patent. Could his Prime Minister instruct the King to do that, or would that really be a matter for the King's discretion?
No, I think there's some wider issues here, and I think, you know, I know that some of the pressure about the announcement on Friday came from the government, who are very worried about the Chinese spy allegations. So I think that the government could put some pressure on the King. I think it's very interesting when you read Valentine Lowe's recent book that actually the monarchy has in some ways behaved best when it's actually had a little bit of prodding from the state.
But Andrew, although I'm sure everybody will agree that the police investigation should be allowed to continue, he should face charges if there is anything there to be charged, but the idea of removing titles and even making him not a prince anymore surely goes completely against the idea of heredity that is what the royal family is all about. And the point of the hereditary monarchy and the aristocracy is that sometimes you get bad eggs, sometimes you get good eggs, but the point is you're born into it and that can't be changed.
Well, I mean, we've got rid of the hereditary principle in the House of Lords, so I mean, I think.
Well, we've got rid of hereditary peers sitting automatically in the House of Lords, but we've not got rid of titles passing on from father to son or father to daughter. That still continues.
Yes, I just think that public opinion is ahead of the palace here. I think they do want to see something happen. He hasn't really, nothing really has changed in his life. He's still living in Royal Lodge. He's still Prince Andrew. And I think something needs to be done to address this. I think also that the Epstein allegations have slightly sidelined us from actually, I think, a bigger scandal, which is his time as special trade envoy between 2001 and 2011. And I think there is a case there for the National Crime Agency to investigate him, which is what, as MPs were calling for 20 years ago.
And
so
what about
the Epstein thing shouldn't take us away from actually some other areas in his life.
And the links also to the, we won't get into the reads of this story, but the Chinese spying row. We now know that Andrew met not once, not twice, but possibly 3 times, a key figure in the Chinese Communist Party. What on earth was he meeting him for?
Well, I mean, he would argue that he was trying to promote trade, but certainly the Chinese as a special trade envoy. But clearly he's been using the Chinese and they've been using him. Ten Bo, the alleged Chinese spy, one of the alleged Chinese spies, was actually basically the figurehead for a pitch at the palace, his charity in China. I mean, I'm afraid there are a number of Chinese spies circling the royal family, and I think Ten Bo is not the only one that perhaps should be investigated. I'm concerned and wrote a little bit in my book about a man called Johnny Hon, who has very close connections to the Chinese government and the North Korean government, who has been employing Sarah Ferguson and has very close links to other members of the royal family. So I think that the Chinese element is an area that needs further investigation, and I think there will be further scandals there.
Andrew, what do you think the implications of the Duke of York's fall from grace will be for his daughters? Do you think they will be able to continue in their roles and potentially one day be working members of the royal family if that's what Prince William wishes when he becomes king?
Well, I think it depends very much on when William becomes king and what happens before then. There has been some scandal associated with them in the past. That may now be over. But, for example, Beatrice was promoting a Saudi bank only the other day, and there are worries that she is in some ways just using the contacts that she picked up from going on some of these trade trips with her father. At the moment, I mean, they've got their own careers, they've got their own families, they have their own charitable interests. And I think probably the palace is waiting to see what happens, and they're focusing on that. I just don't see them being working royals. I mean, my understanding is that the new reign will really just be the direct line of succession. We won't have very many working royals.
Can I just ask you finally, Andrew, a lot of the papers on the front page today, it is the specific allegation that in this email, he wrote to Ed Perkins, who was the Queen's Deputy Press Secretary, saying he'd asked his Royal Protection Officer to effectively dig deep into Virginia Giuffre to try to establish whether she did have a criminal record, to establish whether she was a liar, and he even provided her national insurance number, whatever the American equivalent is. Now, all of that could be a criminal activity. Is it conceivable, in your view, if the police investigate and do a thorough investigation, he could face charges and even end up not in Royal Lodge, but behind bars?
Yes, I think it's perfectly feasible. I mean, it depends just, whether the judicial system is going to make this step, because, as you say, it's a huge step to put a royal in prison. But we have charges for rape, for example, against the son of the Crown Princess in Norway. So, I mean, there are precedents there. We are moving into new ground. But I think, if a member of the royal family has committed an offence, then they should actually face the law in exactly the same way any of us would.
Well, that's really fascinating, Andrew, and what an extraordinary story would that be. I'm just very glad that the late Queen Elizabeth II is not with us, because she would find this all very, very distressing.
Well, Andrew
Yes,
Lowry...
I think it is.
Sorry, do continue.
Sorry, I think it is very distressing for the royal family, and I think the shame is that they haven't actually gripped this problem sooner, and it's got a bigger problem than it needed been.
All right, that's Andrew Lowry, who is the author of entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. And I think there's further, this story, as we say in the trade, has got more to run around. Now, there's a statement which he issued on Friday. What did he say?
He continues to deny
any wrongdoing.
And the Met Police are looking into all of those claims.
Now, we've got some breaking news.
Reform UK spokesperson has told GBNews that 4 of its councillors have had their whip removed pending investigation, following evidence that they brought the party into disrepute. We'll have more on this soon. And Andrew, this does seem to be a potential problem for new Reform councils. Of course, so many elected in May. There was that story over the weekend about Kent Council having that argument over Zoom about who they were going to listen to. So I'm sure everybody will be watching this very closely.
Absolutely. And still ahead, we're talking about Donald Trump, who says the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is still in place despite some fatal strikes on Sunday. Up next, though, the heist of a lifetime.
We need a job. We need a high-paying job. Now we're too hot to work anywhere in this country. Where are we going?
Yes, the hunt is on in Paris for thieves who stole 8 pieces of jewellery from the Louvre Museum in broad daylight and wearing a high-vis jacket.
But first, if you want some elusive holiday sun, here's the forecast.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's an unsettled picture across much of the Mediterranean over the next couple of days, with heavy showers around, particularly across northern parts of Spain and Portugal, southern parts of France, northern parts of Italy, perhaps even some snow over the Alps too. Southern parts of Italy, parts of Greece and northern parts of Turkey faring better in terms of some sunny spells, and temperatures quite widely in the high teens or low 20s for many, but with a bit more dry weather around as we head through the second half of the week. Those temperatures on the rise into the low, potentially mid-20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Prince William has launched this new national suicide prevention campaign around the country, £1 million of funding, helping organisations in each country within the United Kingdom. In order to launch it, he spoke to one mother with a very powerful story and actually got the most emotional I've ever seen him. So let's take a look at that clip, if we can.
Just like to sit him down like this and just say, why didn't you come to me? Because he's missed out on just so much joy, and we would have been okay. You okay?
I'm sorry, it's hard to ask you questions that I know.
Hard,
no,
and
it is.
you've experienced loss yourself.
So that lady, Rianne there, her 1-year-old son died of pneumonia. And 5 days later, her husband, the son's father, took his own life. He killed himself. And what Rianne was telling the prince there was why she didn't have any signs. Why didn't you talk to me about this? Why didn't you say that you were struggling? And that's why the prince got so emotional. Of course, he's campaigned a lot for mental health provision and also to break down the stigmas when it comes to male mental health. And of course, with his own personal story of losing his mother so young, I think it just hit William quite hard.
Oh, he's so lovely, isn't he? What a beautiful man.
So often in these conversations, we talk about young people, we talk about schoolgirls' mental health. Very, very important, of course. But we aren't seeing an epidemic of suicide there. We're seeing an epidemic of suicide amongst men in their 30s and their 40s.
Yeah.
This is a specifically male issue for people that, you know, aren't super young or super old. This is a specific problem for a specific demographic that doesn't often get spoken about.
The People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 12 minutes to 10. You're watching at GB News.
Now, I'm astonished by this story. How could they, in broad daylight, break into the Louvre, one of the most famous museums, art galleries in the world, broad daylight, wearing high-vis jackets, and walk out with diamonds and jewels belonging to Napoleon Bonaparte, who's been dead for 200 years.
That's right, and it only took them 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
They used portable angle grinders. I mean, it is going to be a movie. Of course, it's a horrendous loss to history, but what an incredible story. Well, the French President Emmanuel Macron has said that authorities are doing everything possible to recover the priceless jewellery that was stolen from the Louvre yesterday.
They were masked, they broke in with a ladder, 10:30 local time, and legged it on motorbikes 7 minutes later with 8 pieces of priceless jewellery. Let's talk to David Chazan, who is a Paris correspondent and joins us now. David, we're not mocking, we're not laughing, but it is just jaw-dropping that this could have happened in broad daylight.
It really was exceptionally brazen. Happened about 9:30 yesterday morning local time, when visitors were already inside the museum, and it happened only about 250 yards from the Louvre's most famous painting, possibly the world's most famous, the Mona Lisa. So this has raised all kinds of questions about security at the world's most visited museum, which have been compounded by an official report leaked to French media today, saying that the Louvre's security systems are outdated and inadequate, and parts of the museum lack basic equipment such as CCTV cameras.
Now, we understand that some months ago, staff at the Louvre actually went on strike because they believed that the gallery was so understaffed. Do you think staffing levels could have had anything to do with the ease with which these criminals broke in?
Well, that's certainly what the unions are saying, and there is a public perception that, given that staff are complaining about job cuts, and this is something that goes back a couple of years now, they say over the past 2 years there's been a reduction in staffing of about 16%. So a lot of people are now wondering, well, perhaps there weren't enough security officers, because the alarm systems appear to have worked in the part of the museum that the thieves broke into, and there were staff there, but they were threatened and intimidated by the robbers who were carrying these handheld power tools, disc cutters, which they used to cut through the windows and get into the display cases. And so after they threatened the staff left the immediate vicinity where the theft was being carried out, although according to the reports we've had, there were only 4 thieves there.
There will be theories galore, David, about who, why, what, but what is the most common theory about where this jewellery is destined for? Is it going to be melted down, or is it going to go into some incredibly wealthy private collection and never to be seen again?
Well, the theory that investigators appear to be prioritising is the former, because these pieces are part of France's crown jewels. I mean, it's as if somebody had broken into the Tower of London and taken the crown jewels. They're so recognisable, you cannot sell them as they are. So the theory is that they're going to be melted down and sold for the precious metals and the gems that they contain. And the police are looking particularly at the Belgian border, because they think the robbers will try to leave France and probably head for Belgium, because it's one of the world's biggest diamond markets.
Amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, are people incredulous in Paris? Is it the talk of Paris?
Oh, absolutely. It's the talk of Paris. People are furious because they think, I mean, even the French Justice Minister acknowledged that, you know, quotes, "we have failed." And he added that what French media are dubbing the heist of the century gives a deplorable image of France. So there is anger. And it's been revealed that it wasn't really a lack of funding at the Louvre that caused this. It was just inadequate care and attention to security. Apparently, the Louvre had enough money to update its security systems, but it wasted a lot of time on preparatory studies, didn't do it in time, and so here's the result.
If the guillotine was around, a head would roll, David, if the guillotine was still around.
Well, we'll have to leave it there, but David Shazan, thank you so much for joining us. And a remarkable story, Andrew. And they're armed with power tools. What was staff supposed to do?
Well, quite. But also the noise they would have made.
Exactly. Well, if you're struggling to get online this morning, we'll tell you about the huge internet outage affecting thousands of people across Britain, but don't go away.
Is that why my computer's not working?
Could be, actually, Andrew.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have blustery, heavy showers across England and Wales today, with coastal gales in the south, but drier and brighter across Scotland. So we have low pressure dominating, bringing frequent showers across England and Wales. These are going to be heavy, containing the odd rumble of thunder and hail. Drier to the north of that into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, with sunshine, but more persistent rain across the far north into Shetland. Otherwise, temperatures still around average for the time of year, but underneath all these heavy downpours and coastal gales in the south, probably feeling pretty unpleasant. So as we end Monday evening, we still hold on to this band of rain across Shetland. Otherwise, across much of Scotland, seeing some early evening sunshine. Likewise for Northern Ireland as well. Still a few showers around, but most of the showers still persisting across much of England and Wales. So they are still going to be heavy through this evening. So do take care during rush hour, as there could be some difficult driving conditions. The area of low pressure will shift its way eastwards though, so most of those showers will start easing away. We'll see some clear spells as we go Monday night into Tuesday morning. Then a focus for showers, more so coming into western areas. But under the clear skies, we may see temperatures fall, so chilly in some spots with a few mist and fog patches, but the winds generally easing as well. So as we start Tuesday morning, best of the sunshine really across eastern areas. Well, we'll hold on to the driest conditions for the longest, but otherwise through the day, further showers moving through, but they won't be as heavy or as frequent as what we'll see today. And the wind's not as strong, still breezy out there, but we lose those coastal gales. Otherwise, temperatures still around average, around 12 to 16 degrees. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. In Leeds, roadworks on the M62 eastbound between junctions 28 and 29 close 3 lanes. The M57 southbound in Knowsley requires emergency roadworks at junction 1, fully closing it. In Warwickshire, the A46 southbound has 2 lanes shut due to emergency roadworks. Northamptonshire's A45 eastbound exit slip to the A508 is down to 1 lane for barrier repairs. In Oxfordshire, 2 lanes are closed on the M40 northbound between junctions 10 and 11 for repairs. In Hampshire, the M3 eastbound exit slip at junction 5 is fully closed. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes 1 entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. 1 entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Monday the 20th of October. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So is there to be a police probe into Prince Andrew? The Metropolitan Police say they will look at claims he asked a protection officer to dig the dirt, effectively, on his sex abuse accuser, Virginia Giuffre. Here's Prince Andrew, he's not the Duke of York now, of course, speaking about the Epstein scandal in 2019.
I've questioned myself as to why did I go, what was I doing, and was it the right thing to do?
Meanwhile, GB News has managed to obtain a copy of Virginia Giuffre's memoir ahead of publication. That is the lady who accused Prince Andrew of having sex with her on 3 separate occasions when she was 17 years old. Prince Andrew has always denied the allegations.
And some breaking news this morning. Reform UK tell GB News that 4 councillors have had their whip removed over evidence that they brought the party into disrepute. We'll have all the latest on that.
And more breaking news, there's been a major internet outage that's taken down dozens of websites, including Amazon and Snapchat. We wonder, have you been impacted?
We need a job. We need a high-paying job. Now we're too hot to work anywhere in this country. Where are we going?
Well, a real-life heist has taken place at the Louvre in Paris. Well, Parisian police are racing to find 8 pieces of priceless jewellery stolen in broad daylight from the world's most famous museum.
I think the question really for us is to make sure that the match can go ahead with all of the fans there.
That's the Energy Secretary Ed Miliband saying Aston Villa Stadium cannot be a no-go area for Jews as pressure grows to lift the ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans.
And an Islamophobia overhaul. The official definition of Islamophobia is set to be reworded and replaced by the term anti-Muslim hate.
I find the ban on those fans just embarrassing and cringe-making, and it sends out a terrible signal in Britain. That's the police's job to make that stadium safe, and it's just anti-Semitic.
Yes, well, you can understand why they might genuinely believe that they don't have the resources to keep people safe. But we understand now that the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood knew about the potential ban some days ago, at which point you would have thought that they would consider whether or not they could support the police to make it possible for the match to go ahead.
And she should have at least raised a red flag. She should have discussed it with the Chief Constable. Bear in mind, she's a Birmingham MP. Aston Villa is a Midlands football club. I wonder if she was thinking of her own constituency, which is a dominant Muslim constituency. I think they have to overturn the ban.
Well, yes, but then they'll also need a lot of resources because remember those pictures from Amsterdam last November when Maccabi Tel Aviv played the Amsterdam club Ajax, and of course there were stabbings, horrendous disorder. So we don't want that in Birmingham, but we do want the match to go ahead. So we'll see what happens. But we'd love to know what you think. Send your views and post your comments to gbnews.com/your say.
But first, here's the headlines with Sam Francis.
Miriam, Andrew, thank you very much. Good morning to you. Just after 10 o'clock. Well, Buckingham Palace could face fresh turmoil as Virginia Giuffre's memoir is published this week. Prince Andrew, who has now relinquished his dukedom and honours, is under renewed pressure after claims he asked his staff to investigate Miss Giuffre over a decade ago. Those allegations are now being reviewed by the Metropolitan Police. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has said stripping Andrew of his title as prince isn't a matter for the government. She insists the decision should rest solely with the royal family. Well, in her memoir, Giuffre alleges that Andrew forced her to sign a gag order after their 2022 settlement and describes the prince's infamous Newsnight interview as jet fuel for her legal case. The King is said to be in lockstep with Prince William on how to handle his brother and is facing calls from Giuffre's family to go further and remove Andrew's remaining royal status. In other news, President Donald Trump insists the Gaza ceasefire is still holding despite Israel launching a wave of strikes on Hamas overnight. The Israeli military says it acted after terrorists fired an anti-tank missile and gunfire towards troops in Rafah, killing 2 soldiers. By nightfall, Israel said it had struck Hamas targets across Gaza, with hospital officials reporting at least 44 people died. Hamas denies clashes in the area and says it remains committed to the ceasefire, but warns continued strikes could trigger a total collapse. Well, Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, are heading to Israel today as Washington is stepping in to keep the now fragile deal alive. Rachel Reeves has warned that Brexit has left a lasting scar on the UK economy, telling the IMF that the 2020 deal compounded Britain's productivity problem. Speaking to the world's top finance ministers and central bankers, the Chancellor said the UK acknowledges the 4% long-term economic hit forecast by the OBR. Her remarks mark a striking shift for Labour, which has grown more vocal about Brexit's downsides since last month's party conference. It comes ahead of November's budget, where Reeves is expected to unveil new tax measures to repair the public finances after a productivity downgrade. Meanwhile, the Tories have promised £47 billion in spending cuts if they return to power, setting up a major political clash over how to fix Britain's economy. Grieving families have welcomed a full and independent investigation into maternity and neonatal care at Leeds Teaching Hospital, where they say their babies were failed and their concerns ignored. Health Secretary Wes Streeting says he was shocked by repeated maternity failures and the unacceptable response of the trust, ordering what he calls an exceptional inquiry into uncovering the truth. Parents say they were gaslit, dismissed and even blamed, demanding police involvement and calling for midwife Donna Ockenden, who led the Nottingham review, to also chair their probe. Breaking news this morning that Amazon's cloud computing arm, known as AWS, is suffering a major outage, disrupting dozens of major websites and apps around the world. They include Snapchat, HMRC and Halifax, with users reporting thousands of issues this morning. Amazon says it is working to restore services, but for now, much of the internet remains offline and glitchy. Also among the websites affected, Duolingo, Roblox, Canva, Fortnite, and as I say, even HMRC's own website among the affected websites, according to Down Detector. Plenty more on that with Andrew and Miriam. And the government has unveiled plans for a new V-level qualification designed to simplify what ministers call a confusing post-16 education system. They'll replace Level 3 BTECs and other technical courses, offering students a mix and match alternative to A-level or T-levels. The Education Secretary says V-levels will give young people a clearer vocational route into careers, while also tackling low GCSE resit pass rates with a brand new qualification. But sixth form leaders warn the new system could leave gaps, saying V-levels might not go far enough to replace existing BTECs. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you shortly, now though it's over to Britain's Newsroom.
Now, breaking news, there's been a major internet outage that's taken down literally dozens of websites, including Amazon, Snapchat, Duolingo, never heard of it. Amazon Web Services has been identified as the cause of the problem. Won't impact me because I don't have an Amazon account, but this is huge, of course. Thousands and thousands have been affected by the outage globally, including
Snapchat, Zoom, Roblox, Clash Royale, MyFitnessPal, Life360, Clash of Clans, Fortnite, Canva, Wordle, Signal, Coinbase, Duolingo. It's an app that helps you to learn languages.
Right.
It's very popular.
Right.
Slack, Smartsheet, Pokemon Go, Epic Games, PlayStation Network. Well, some children will have started...
Is this why I can't even turn my laptop on today?
I think you've got a hardware issue there, Andrew, but it's possible. But some children have started their half-term holiday today because some schools have 2 weeks at autumn.
Well, then they can read a book.
They'll have to read a book. With
Gosh,
no
that'll be
Pokemon.
a struggle.
Life360, that's what I use to track my children, so they could be up to absolutely anything right now.
So you can track where they are on your phone?
Exactly. So, you know, they know how long it is till you're going to pick them up, etc. Snapchat, that's great. That's a terrible app. Children should not use it, so I'm glad that's down.
But Zoom, a lot of people use Zoom these days.
Yes, that's right. And of course, Amazon Web Service, absolutely enormous, providing servers for all those companies. Huge business.
Yeah. Well, if you can't buy an Amazon, go and support your local high street.
Absolutely, good advice. Well, we will, of course, keep you up to date. I'm not sure how, if you can't watch us online, but we will keep you up to date with that internet outage. It does make you realise how much we rely on it.
How dependent we are on it. Yeah, I mean, we make light, but we are dependent. Now, we've been talking about Prince Andrew a lot this morning. Cameron Walker is our royal correspondent. You have a bit of hot property in your hand.
I do, yes. Ahead of publication, GB News, we have managed to obtain a copy of Virginia Giuffre's memoir. So this is the lady who took her own life back in April. But she alleged and wrote this book before she died and alleged that Prince Andrew had sex with her on 3 separate occasions when she was 17 years old. That is a claim that Prince Andrew has always denied and continued to deny on Friday when he released a statement saying he is no longer going to be using his Duke of York title. So clearly it's going to be very uncomfortable reading for the royal family. We're still going through the details of this book, so keep tuning into GB News all day for the very latest on Virginia's allegations. However, it's not just Virginia's allegations that's the problem here, because the Mail on Sunday over the weekend alleged that Prince Andrew had instructed his close protection officer to essentially dig dirt on Virginia Giuffre when she came forward to the Mail on Sunday in 2011 with the original allegation that she had sex with Prince Prince Andrew and the photograph, the now infamous photograph of Prince Andrew with his hand around the waist of the supposed 17-year-old Virginia Giuffre, then Roberts, in Glenn Maxwell's London house. So it's incredibly tricky. We have been to Prince Andrew for a response. He hasn't responded yet, but it's a pretty serious allegation, and the Metropolitan Police are actively investigating.
And there is pressure that because the Duke of York title hasn't gone. It's like it's been put in a storage facility. He's still the Duke of York. So the only way to strip him of that title would be if Parliament acted. They've not done that since 1917. It would be a major step. But I can tell you, I can feel it. A lot of MPs think it should happen.
Yeah, a lot of MPs think it should happen, so does a lot of the public, actually. And what's been really frustrating over the whole weekend, I'll tell you straight, is that Buckingham Palace says, well, it's up to the government if that happens. And the government says, well, we're going to take our word from the palace. And like, well, who's actually, in charge here? So, yes, you're right.
Ministers decide.
Yes, and the King acts on government advice.
But doesn't this set a very dangerous precedent, actually one that really threatens our constitution, which is that it's up to the King whether or not Andrew should be involved in royal life and public life, and clearly he's not going to be ever again. But titles are passed on through inheritance, and that's not up to Parliament. That is the law of our constitution. That's how the monarchy works. And if you were to interrupt that for Prince Andrew, you would set a precedent where in future another royal who is not in favour, whether it's a serious offence or not, there'd be public clamour for Parliament to act, and you've essentially then lost that very important setup in our constitution.
Well, it is a very good point, but of course there is currently a public mood that Prince Andrew should be essentially punished further for what he may or may not have done. As I said, he continues to deny all the allegations. But it's rare, but there is precedent, you said, 1917, to remove the German prince's title during the First World War. So the question is, Miriam,
and
therefore...
And yet the Duke of Windsor, the former Edward VIII, was allowed to keep his title until he died, despite having been friends with the Nazis and effectively exiled. He kept his title.
And the question is, therefore, what is going to be the threshold if it does come to this? And that is going to be the very tricky balance for the palace and the government to decide what to do. And the other question is, of course, his prince title. That requires a letters patent written by King Charles to remove the prince title, but he'd only do that on the advice of the government.
Fascinating, Cameron. We'll hear more from Cameron. Prince Andrew, of course, has previously and continues to deny any wrongdoing, and the Met Police say they're currently looking into the claims.
Well, we'll keep you up to date on that. Well, moving on, as Budget Day gets closer, the last thing the Chancellor needs is another doubter.
And this time it's from an unusual quarter. Sir Tony Blair, no less, Labour's most successful post-war Prime Minister. He won 3 consecutive general elections. He believes the top rate of income tax should be cut to below 40%, putting him at odds with Rachel Reeves and the Prime Minister. And he also says that people crossing the channel in small boats should not be allowed to claim asylum.
Maybe he's changed his mind about the Human Rights Act. Well, Gavin Rice is the head of political economy at the think tank Onward. He joins us now in the studio. Gavin, good morning.
Good morning,
What do you think of Tony Blair's latest intervention, this time on tax?
Well, it's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, Tony Blair and Gordon Brown together increased public spending in the UK to pretty much unprecedented levels back when they were in government. So it's interesting that now he's coming out criticising Rachel Reeves' spending plans. I mean, I think he's got a point, to be honest. I think the UK finances are not in a good place. The government has essentially already briefed out in advance that they are going to be raising taxes at the coming budget. That's essentially priced in now. Growth is really bad and tax receipts are very bad as well. And so I think, to be honest, he's got a point.
But in some ways, he is responsible for the kind of ratchet effect that taxation has taken over recent years. The freezing of the thresholds. One of the biggest reasons why people at the top end of the income scale are taxed so heavily is because those high rate thresholds have been frozen for so long. The rich are paying a greater proportion of tax than they ever have before.
Yeah, well, I think there's 2 factors here. The first is basically the discretionary spending that Rachel Reeves has chosen to increase spending by. That's to the tune of some £76 billion, and that's an official Treasury statistic, and that's things like public sector pay deals, more money on the NHS, more money for sort of green projects and things like that, things that she's chosen to do. Obviously, that's probably unwise. But there are also long-term structural issues facing the UK public finances and the UK economy that anyone would have had to deal with, including Rishi Sunak if he'd stayed in power. And that's things like the upwards pressure on pensions budgets, the cost of the triple lock, which is forecast to, just the triple lock, not the pension, to increase public spending by £15 billion per year between now and 2029 to 2030. And of course, the ever-expanding welfare budget with more and more people slipping out of work. So there are short-term factors and there are long-term factors as well. What's become very clear, though, is that the Labour backbenchers have got no appetite whatsoever for spending cuts. They don't think it's what they were elected to do.
And they certainly won't want to see a higher rate of tax cuts. They want to tax richer people, and I don't think you are particularly rich, particularly where the 40p rate kicks in. They want to see it extended. He's completely out of step with his own party.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And as you say, Miriam, the higher earners in our society, people that pay the higher rate, not the top rate, but just the higher rate, are servicing a bigger and bigger and bigger share of the tax burden. And that can only go so far before you actually start losing receipts because of the damaging effect that it has on incentives. If you wound the 50,000 threshold for the high rate back to the prices of 2019, it would kick in at 42 grand. I mean, that strikes me as an insane threshold to start paying 40%. So something is going to have to be done, and it's going to have to be quite deep and quite radical.
Yes, I was reading this morning that when that higher rate was introduced, almost no teachers would have been in the higher rate tax. Now, 1 in 4 teachers. There's a huge disincentive to work. But we always... You know, we're saying frequently in this country how highly we are taxed, and we are compared to previous years, but we're not that highly taxed compared to other countries, European countries, for example. Why do we feel the pressure so intensely compared to maybe some of our European neighbours?
Well, whether you're highly taxed depends on who you are. If you're someone who is paying the higher rate or the additional rate, then you are quite highly taxed, especially once you throw in national insurance and loads of other factors as well. If you are a basic rate payer, you're only paying 20p in the pound and you've got the personal allowance on the first 12,000 of your income anyway. The average American, and we think of them as being a low tax society, pays 25 cents on the dollar in direct income taxes once you add everything together. So the truth is, if you are an average taxpayer or a below average earner in the UK, you're actually not paying that much income tax. And it's partly because the Tories, understandably, try to protect people from the effects of rising public spending. But the result is now you've got an ever-shrinking tax base with a smaller selection of people paying the overall tax bill, and that can only go so far before you start losing.
Well, wouldn't one sensible reform, why do we have national insurance and income tax? National insurance does not pay money directly into the NHS. It might have done originally, but it certainly doesn't now. It's just two hugely expensive taxes to administer with a vast bureaucracy.
I agree with you. It's essentially another form of income tax, and it's a political problem as well, because people feel, because of the name, that it is a form of insurance. So when you talk about things like the cost of the state pension, the cost of the triple lock, people say, well, I paid in for all of those years, and they did, but unfortunately that's not how it's financed. The state pension is financed from current spending, from current taxation, and so it's actually a misleading thing in our politics. It's essentially another form of income tax. Maybe there's a case that it should just be rolled together.
And of course, Rachel Reeves and others keep saying that they want the burden of taxation to fall on the Border's shoulders, but of course that is already happening. I just want to show you this graph here that I think we've got in there. Here we go. So this is the proportion of different occupations, nurses, electricians, who used to pay the higher rate of tax, that's in green in 1993, but who now pay the higher rate of tax. Look at that change, Gavin. It's phenomenal. Ordinary jobs, ordinary salaries, now taxed at 40%, well, 50% once you take into account national insurance.
Yeah, and once you start losing some of those benefits that you start losing when you have a higher income, things like child benefit, that gets phased out, the personal allowance gets phased out. If you've got a student loan on top of that, you can end up getting a 70% marginal rate of tax, or even over 100%, because, you know, a friend of mine is choosing to drop down to 80% of hours, because otherwise he and his wife are going to lose their childcare entitlement. They'd actually be losing money. So there's all kinds of crazy distortions up the income distribution that really do need to be sorted out.
And we've been talking about it for years, and they never seem to get on and do it.
No, that's absolutely right. And the problem is, you know, we do want society to be fair. We do want taxation to be progressive, as the term goes. But if you're punishing the people that are actually paying the majority of the bill, then you're going to affect incentives, and people are going to start thinking, well, why bother? And then you get into a doom loop where your receipts go down. So you can only push things so far before you actually start losing money, both to individuals and to the exchequer.
Well, Gavin Rice, depressing but helpful at the same time. Thank you so much. Well, if you're fed up of losing all your money to tax, perhaps you want to take part in our giveaway.
Yeah, here's how you could make it all yours.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway, and a prize worth over £104,000 really could be yours. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons, comfortably sleeps your family of 4, and comes fully kitted out with bicycle rack and side awning. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner, and that winner really could be you. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, we'll have the latest on this huge internet outage, which has left thousands of people without access to Zoom, Snapchat and online banking.
I think it's more than thousands. I think it's probably
millions.
millions.
Probably be. With all those websites, they're very, very common ones.
Stay tuned. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The entry-exit system, the so-called digital borders scheme. And the idea is that the European Union wants to know more about you. It wants to be absolutely sure that this is Dawn Neeson and this is her fingerprints and this is her facial biometric. So the first time you go to a European Union or wider Schengen area airport, that would include Norway, Switzerland, Iceland, you get in, you land, you then have to register your biometrics, fingerprints and face, and that gets tallied to your identity from your passport. And then that's just the start. You then go through the same old analog palaver where somebody comes along, has a look at your passport, checks you haven't spent too long there, gives you a stamp and off you go. And that's exactly why we're getting warnings from the travel industry that it could actually hold you up for 4 hours, which would take the edge off the start of your holiday.
Sounds quite similar, Simon, to what happens when you go to America, where they will sort of like ask you to do your fingerprints and sort of like, you know, stare into a camera lens type things. Is that quite similar?
That's all to do with it when you get an ESTA, that's the permit you have to apply for. For this, you don't need to prepare anything. So don't worry, people. Just get on the plane or indeed get in your car and drive to Dover or wherever and just basically do what you're told. Having said that, fingerprints are very last century. Talking to the brainy people who do biometrics, they say your facial biometrics are so good that you don't need fingerprints, you don't need iris scanning. We know from your beautiful face that that can only ever be Dawn Neeson.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 25 minutes past 10. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Got our lovely panel here, Matthew Talbot and Piers Pottinger. Piers, we have to come to you first because amongst the many institutions and people you've advised, they include a woman who was until Friday known as the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson.
Yeah.
How would you, I mean, this is a mess of epic proportions.
It is. It's an appalling situation, and it's not doing the monarchy any good. No. But it is extraordinary. One thing I think that is overlooked is that in the Epstein affair, which is colossal, it seems only the British are being dragged into it. Peter Mandelson, Ghislaine Maxwell, Prince Andrew, they're all British. And yet Epstein built a $1 billion fortune in America, hobnobbing regularly with the likes of Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Bill Clinton. Now, all of the American figures in this appalling mess seem to have escaped scot-free. And why isn't there an investigative journalist in America looking at how Epstein built his fortune? Because no one has yet come up with the answer to that
I'm not
either.
sure.
It wasn't through property, so I believe it had to be through the stock exchange, because he was a broker at Bear Stearns originally. And I think the American angle of this, it's very sinister how it is entirely focused on the British and particularly Prince Andrew. Now, there's no question that if he did what the dead Virginia Giuffre alleges, if he did that, it's all very horrible and sordid and very unpleasant, and it would appear he hasn't been totally truthful with not just journalists but the British people. And it is despicable. But, and it's a big but, look at the whole Epstein picture has only been touched on by this aspect of it. I think there's much more to come. Not, I'm afraid, a bit more, obviously, for Andrew as well, sadly. But I think also in America, there is a huge amount that is totally under wraps.
Very interesting. But do you think Parliament, Matthew, I mean, you know Labour MPs better than anyone in this studio, do you think Parliament will move or should move to strip him of the Duke of York? Because it's just in abeyance, that title.
Yes, I think, judging by Ed Miliband's comments yesterday on the media, he said that the King has almost initiated that he doesn't want parliamentary time taken up with this. I think what others have said is we could do it in about 5 days. It wouldn't take up much time.
And is it for the King to decide, or is it for Parliament to decide?
Well, I think democratically you want Parliament to decide. I think it sets... several quandaries, I suppose, appear. You set a precedent of, if you begin stripping titles, if you get, you know, an awful type of government in who goes, oh, we're going to get rid of the King, we'll take his title.
Exactly.
You have that precedent. But the other issue is, if this actually comes to pass and Parliament forces this through Stephen Flynn or others, the SNP leader in Westminster that's pushing for this sort of stuff, do you want to be the person that votes against this? Are you sticking up for Randy Andy? You know, are you going there to stick up for this man that was best friends with a convicted paedophile? I don't know whether you really want to.
But also, once you start doing this, where do you stop? There are an awful lot of people who'd like to see the Duke of Sussex lose his title after his attack on the royal family and this country, and all the appalling way he's behaved and continues to. But maybe, you know, and the other thing is, once the monarchy starts disintegrating, we could end up as a republic, which would be ghastly, and we'd end up with a president. And you just need to look at France, where the former president starts his jail sentence today.
Well, I'm a traditionalist, and I think that they should just take the old-fashioned approach and exile him. That's what kings used to do.
I think that may happen organically. I think clearly there's going to be...
I think it's the only route
because
for
you're
them.
absolutely right. Once you start stripping titles, that's the end of our constitution. Because the point of the hereditary title is it doesn't matter if the person who's inheriting the title is a wonderful person or an absolute idiot. The point is, it's the title that follows it. It's nothing to do with the behaviour. Once you've lost that, we've lost the constitution.
And once we've lost our monarchy, we've lost so much in this country. And therefore, I'm afraid, exile, rather like Wallace Simpson,
exactly. That's just what I was thinking.
For Andrew and Fergie.
Where would you send them?
Well, the obvious thing was, what about Rwanda?
Here we've got some wonderful facilities there.
I mean, sure, we've still got some buildings there that haven't been used properly. No, in all seriousness, I don't know where.
Well, the Balmoral estate is 20,000 acres. There's lots of properties on there. He could be there.
It's still a royal estate.
But we'd never see him again.
I know. Well, I don't think we're going to see him again anyway, wherever he is.
I think it'd be exile in all but word. He's not going to be seen with the family.
But cancelled is very modern. I prefer exiled.
Exiled is fine, but also there's going to be further questions on how he's affording the Royal Lodge. He's got to have £250,000 a year for upkeep and rent. Who's employing him? Who's genuinely... Where's he getting this money from?
Because
investments.
Because the 12 million allegedly paid to Virginia Giuffre was paid by the King and the late Queen.
Yeah. I mean, the royal family are still a royal family, and I'm sure they will make sure he's financially secure.
When you gave Sarah Ferguson advice, was she any good at taking it?
She's actually was an extremely nice person and a very lively personality. I would say perhaps not very good when it comes to judgment on almost any subject. And sadly, trying to be things she had never any chance of being.
Matthew?
Are you a monarchist?
Ooh, on the spot now.
I think I would err on the side of republicanism.
Would you?
I think. But I think as I get older, I'm becoming more patriotic as I grow older. Right. And actually, really stupidly, it's a bit sort of quaint, Gareth Southgate was a big reason for that. I genuinely... The first time I sang God Save the Queen, as it was then, was the European final that he got us to. And there was a group of lads that, for me, summed up Britain, that had worked hard, come from very little in many ways. He was the epitome for me, and still is, of a leader. Someone that is a mentor, someone that would take the flak and not throw his teammates under the bus, someone that would be open and transparent and look after people. And I think that's the sort of thing that we should always aim to do.
Did you see the play about him?
No, I wish I had. I believe they're going to
televise it. And I don't care for football at all, but it was very interesting.
Well, Matthew Pearce, thank you very much. See you in the next hour. Do stay with us, but here's your 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. 10:32. The top story this hour. The Met Police say they are actively investigating claims that Prince Andrew passed Virginia Giuffre's personal details to a bodyguard to dick up dirt for a smear campaign. Her posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, also alleges his team tried to hire internet trolls to harass her. Pressure is now mounting on the royal family to strip Andrew of his dukedom after he dropped the title on Friday. Breaking this morning, a major Amazon outage is knocking some of the world's biggest apps offline, including Snapchat, Duolingo and even HMRC's website. Banks like Halifax and Lloyds also reportedly affected. Amazon says it is now working to restore services, but for now, much of the internet remains glitchy and offline. President Trump insists the Gaza ceasefire is still in place hours after Israeli strikes left at least 44 dead. Israel says it resumed enforcement after an anti-tank attack in Rafah, but Hamas accuses Israel of violations. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has blamed Brexit for stunting Britain's growth, warning it's dragging down productivity and public finances. It marks her clearest claim yet of Brexit's economic damage, setting the stage for tough choices in next month's budget. And families in Leeds are welcoming an independent inquiry into repeated maternity failures at the city's NHS Trust. They're calling for police involvement and for midwife Donna Ockenden to lead the review. The government's unveiling V-Levels, new technical courses to replace BTECs and simplify post-16 education. Ministers promise clearer routes into work, but colleges warn they may not fill the gap. Those are the 10:30 headlines. I'll be back with you at 11.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Still ahead, we'll have the latest on Prince Andrew, who could face the first royal police probe in 20 years over smear claims.
Up next, a major internet outage has hit millions of web users. Could it be another cyber attack? We'll have the latest. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have blustery, heavy showers across England and Wales today, with coastal gales in the south, but drier and brighter across Scotland. So we have low pressure dominating, bringing frequent showers across England and Wales. These are going to be heavy, containing the odd rumble of thunder and hail. Drier to the north of that into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland with sunshine, but more persistent rain across the far north into Shetland. Otherwise, temperatures still around average for the time of year, but underneath all these heavy downpours and coastal gales in the south, probably feeling pretty unpleasant. So as we end Monday evening, we still hold on to this band of rain across Shetland. Otherwise, across much of Scotland, seeing some early evening sunshine. Likewise for Northern Ireland as well. Still a few showers around, but most of the showers still persisting across much of England and Wales. So they are still going to be heavy through this evening. So do take care during rush hour, as there could be some difficult driving conditions. The area of low pressure will shift its way eastwards though, so most of those showers will start easing away. We'll see some clear spells as we go Monday night into Tuesday morning. Then a focus for showers, more so coming into western areas. But under the clear skies, we may see temperatures fall, so chilly in some spots with a few mist and fog patches, but the winds generally easing as well. So as we start Tuesday morning, best of the sunshine really across eastern areas. Well, we'll hold on to the driest conditions for the longest, but otherwise through the day, further showers moving through, but they won't be as heavy or as frequent as what we'll see today. And the wind's not as strong, still breezy out there, but we lose those coastal gales. Otherwise, temperatures still around average, around 12 to 16 degrees. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Drivers on the A9 southbound at Downaspidal should remain cautious due to ongoing maintenance. Both directions on the A55 between Junction 17 Conwy-Morpher and Junction 19 Glan-Conwy face significant delays, with local diversions easing traffic. The A46 northbound in Lincolnshire is congested, with delays of up to half an hour expected. In Oxfordshire, the M40 southbound exit slip at Junction 8A is closed following an accident. Road users should seek alternative routes, and on the trains, Gatwick Express services are halted, and Greater Anglia reports major disruptions between Broxbourne and London Liverpool Street. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's 22 minutes to 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
So Amazon's cloud computing arm, I'm having to read this every word because I don't really understand much of this, AWS is suffering a major outage, disrupting dozens of major websites and apps all around the world.
Well, it's hit millions of users and impacted some of Andrew's favourite apps, including Snapchat, Pokemon Go and Duolingo. Never heard of
any of them.
Well, GB News' technology editor, Aaron Brown, has joined us now. Aaron, this is huge news. Can you tell us a little bit more about Amazon Web Services and why this is so crucial to UK infrastructure?
Yeah, of course. So Amazon Web Services, which is owned and operated by Amazon, is completely different to what most people would think of when they're thinking about Amazon, you know, the retail website that we've all used. So essentially, the way it works, the best analogy is thinking in terms of utilities. So back in the day, when the internet was in its infancy, if you owned a website, you had to almost build your own power plant to power it. And then companies like Amazon came along. It was one of the first in 2006, and they basically created the national grid for the modern internet. So rather than having to do the work yourself, you just pay them on a pay-as-you-go basis, and they will sort everything for you. So the advantages was that it was more secure because you've got a company like Amazon managing it. You don't have to build these vast data centers that we see pictures of in the deserts in the US and things like that. And it was cheaper cheaper because you only paid for what you used rather than having to build enough infrastructure that if your website or app like Duolingo suddenly became incredibly popular and you had all these people requesting to use it and you didn't have the available resources. But what has happened today is that they've said there's been an issue in their US East 1 region, which is hosted in Northern Virginia, and which a lot of the UK, Europe and North America runs from.
So it's not just a UK outage
It's
then?
not just a UK outage.
An outage means what? It just means these websites have come down and you can't access them?
Yes, yeah. So essentially, when you request, you type something into your computer or load up an app, you're then sending a request to, in this case, AWS, and there's a glitch on their side and they're not able to deliver the website for you. So they've got the website in their infrastructure and your device is requesting it.
And is this a technical glitch, or could this be a cyber attack?
It's possible. They haven't said anything as yet. They've said that they've identified a root cause of the issue, but they haven't said what that is. So we'll have to wait for more information. The good news I can tell you is that things are coming back online.
But even outage for just a couple of hours will have an enormous financial implications for some of these companies. We saw Barclays, one of the companies affected. But we are heavily reliant now, aren't we, on this one company, AWS?
100%. Yeah, AWS alone is 30% of the cloud compute market. And as you say, it's commercial enterprises, you know, your apps like Peloton, Strava, Zoom, Ring, Wordle is all hosted, but also, you know, some key government services. HMRC went down earlier, and people's online banking as well. Yeah, we're part of that as well. Lloyds, Halifax, Banks.
Is there any way we can be more resilient? Are there ways of diversifying the server network or doing other things that would enable us to? Because if this were a cyber attack, if we were in a time of war, for example, we would need to be a little bit more robust than this.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon is the biggest, but there are other options around. You know, Google has its own. Microsoft has a huge play in this space as well. But we are reliant on these American tech companies. They're the ones with the resources. They're building these data centers. So there's definitely a risk in that. But I would say, in general, you know, when incidents like this happen, it's incredibly inconvenient. You know, people are left with access to these key services for a few hours. But, you know, taking a longer view over the last 20 years, overall, the internet has become more reliable, more secure, despite more people than ever before using it.
I think it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, how many people do you think are impacted by this, Aaron?
It's thousands. The moment something like this goes down, it's thousands on each one of these services. Right. You know, Snapchat alone was 10,000 people immediately.
And some of them you can laugh about, like, it doesn't really matter if you can't do Wordle today. But if you urgently need to go onto your bank account to transfer some money or to pay your rent or something, then obviously that is much more difficult.
Or HMRC.
Yeah,
and they don't hang around if you're late with your payment.
Tax,
you get whacked with interest. So that could be a real problem for small businesses as well, I imagine.
Completely. Yeah.
Gosh.
Well, Aaron Brown, thank you so much for enlightening us, and we will keep you up to date with that issue. Hopefully, everything will be switched back on shortly.
Do you think I should give Aaron my laptop?
Give it a try. Here we go. See what you can do with that, Aaron.
I think it was on the arc, Adam. I think that's the problem. So, I mean, I'm just being pathetic, really. Now, still ahead, find out why women peers are mounting an attempt to overturn MPs' plans to decriminalise abortion. But
first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
It's an unsettled picture across much of the Mediterranean over the next couple of days, with heavy showers around, particularly across northern parts of Spain and Portugal, southern parts of France, northern parts of Italy, perhaps even some snow over the Alps too. Southern parts of Italy, parts of Greece and northern parts of Turkey faring better in terms of some sunny spells, and temperatures quite widely in the high teens or low 20s for many, but with a bit more dry weather around as we head through the second half of the week. Those temperatures on the rise into the low, potentially mid-20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Good morning. It's just gone 11:15. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Well, Labour ministers want to create a new legal definition of Islamophobia in a bid to stem rising number of hate crimes against Muslims.
But critics voiced concerns that doing so could curtail speech about Islamic extremism.
The new wording will instead aim to define hatred towards Muslims, whilst also, they say, protect free speech.
Well, joining us now to discuss this is the Head of Public Policy at Christian Concern, Tim Dieppe. Tim, good morning. Welcome to the show. There have been huge concerns amongst some that this new definition of Islamophobia would make it impossible to criticise the religion of Islam in public. But it seems the government have now backtracked. Do you welcome that decision, and why do you think they have done a U-turn on this?
Well, Miriam, I hope this is true, but we haven't seen the actual definition that has been proposed. It's all very much done in secret. It's all kind of based on rumours and leaks. I don't know what the definition says. I don't know what the proposed definition is. What we're reported is that it's about anti-Muslim hatred rather than about Islamophobia, and if that's true, then that is definitely progress. But my argument has always been that we don't need any new definition, that the words anti-Muslim hatred or anti-Muslim discrimination are clear and sufficient in themselves. We don't need a definition of Islamophobia, which makes it seem like it's about Islam, the religion, whereas anti-Muslim is about the people. And we should certainly be against anti-Muslim hatred, anti-Muslim discrimination, but we must be allowed to criticise, critique, question, query practices and beliefs of Muslims, and that's where we mustn't use the word Islamophobia at all, in my view, and I don't think any new definition is really needed.
Why do you think they're doing it then?
Because they're very keen to appease the Muslim vote. They had this definition, the APPG definition, which was proposed by the All-Party Parliamentary Group on British Muslims in 2018, which defined Islamophobia as a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. Now, this is a very problematic definition because, first of all, Islam is not a race, and secondly, Muslimness is not defined, and in case that wasn't bad enough, it's also perceived Muslimness. So basically, it's a catch-all for anything that anyone can use to accuse you of Islamophobia for saying something that somebody perceives as Islamophobic. Now, that's been adopted formally by the Labour Party, Lib Dems, Plaid Cymru, and a number of other parties as well, and dozens of local councils, creating a kind of de facto blasphemy code for these various organisations, and basically for most of our MPs in Parliament today. But the government was challenged about this and had to agree that that definition is in conflict with the Equality Act because you can't define Islam as a race. So they put up, set up a working group to propose an alternative definition of Islamophobia, and the group proposed a definition. We don't know what it is yet, sometime in the last few weeks. The claims are in the media that it's not a definition of Islamophobia, it's a definition of anti-Muslim hatred. That is definitely progress, but we don't know what the definition actually says. We're also seeing claims that it doesn't use the word Muslimness. That's also progress as well. But again, my view is I don't want any definition. I don't think any definition is needed, and we don't know what this definition says and why is it being so secretive. I think they should just be very upfront and clear about it rather than being secretive so we don't know what they're actually discussing.
Now, Tim, could you give us some examples of the kind of speech or behaviour that could potentially become illegal and be prosecuted if the most extreme version of an Islamophobia definition were to be put into place?
Yes, well, the document that proposed that APPG definition I talked about did say certain types of criticism of Muhammad, saying that Islam spread by the sword, certain criticisms of behaviour of, say, Hamas or things that are happening in Gaza could be deemed Islamophobia or would be deemed Islamophobic. And therefore, a historian writing about wars in Islamic history, that would be Islamophobic because that's saying Islam spread by the sword. For example. So legitimate criticism of Islamic history even and Islamic practices. Grooming gangs also were mentioned in the report as saying, you can't say that it's anything to do with Islam because that would be Islamophobic as well. And clearly there was a strong case for that based on certain verses in the Quran. It would be very, very curtailing of free speech, and I think it's a very concerning thing, and I really hope the government definition that they're proposing doesn't cover any of that, but I really don't want them to propose any definition at all, really.
Tim, do you think we need to go back to a time when there actually weren't any laws protecting any particular groups and we just had general protection in terms of making sure individuals were not harassed, individuals were not discriminated against? Has this kind of groupthink created the problem that we now see?
Yes, I agree. And people have sort of adopted a victim mentality. And you've got allegations of homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia now as well. And people want to have their own phobia and their own definition of something. And I think, I don't think we should have this. Really, it's expressions of hatred and discrimination against individuals are wrong and should be curbed in law, as they rightly already are. But we don't need and don't want further definitions and people claiming phobia of this or phobia of that or phobia of the other. We must be able to criticise, for example, transgenderism and Islam and various other things as well, without any fear of breaching a law or breaching a code or losing your job or something like that.
And Tim, and Christianity too. Must be able to criticise Christianity.
Absolutely. I don't like the term Christianophobia either. I don't want a particular definition for Christianity either. Anti-Christian hatred, anti-Christian discrimination is sufficient, as it is for anti-Sikh and anti-Jew and anti-whatever else. So I don't want new definitions that basically do curb free speech and say you're not allowed to say these kind of things. Let's just have discrimination or hatred of particular people rather than about the religion itself.
All right.
Tim Dieppe, Christian
Really
Concern, thank you very much. Very helpful.
Now, we've got to read out a correction. Miriam and I didn't mess up, actually, but earlier on breakfast, a guest mentioned horse chestnuts in context of a recipe. We want to clarify that he intended to refer to sweet chestnuts. Horse chestnuts are apparently not edible and could be harmful if you consume. Miriam is laughing, and of course she should not be laughing because, of course, we don't want you eating any horse chestnuts. Sweet chestnuts, all right? There we are. We're correcting the record. Up next.
We have the latest on Prince Andrew, who could face...
He's lost the plot. He could place a royal probe, and the last royal probe... anyway, we'll have the latest in the royal household. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning news programme.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have blustery, heavy showers across England and Wales today, with coastal gales in the south, but drier and brighter across Scotland. So we have low pressure dominating, bringing frequent showers across England and Wales. These are going to be heavy, containing the odd rumble of thunder and hail. Drier to the north of that into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland with sunshine, but more persistent rain across the far north into Shetland. Otherwise, temperatures still around average for the time of year, but underneath all these heavy downpours and coastal gales in the south, probably feeling pretty unpleasant. So as we end Monday evening, we still hold on to this band of rain across Shetland. Otherwise, across much of Scotland, seeing some early evening sunshine. Likewise for Northern Ireland as well. Still a few showers around, but most of the showers still persisting across much of England and Wales. So they're still going to be heavy through this evening. So do take care during rush hour, as there could be some difficult driving conditions. The area of low pressure will shift its way eastwards though, so most of those showers will start easing away. We'll see some clear spells as we go Monday night into Tuesday morning. Then a focus for showers, more so coming into western areas. But under the clear skies, we may see temperatures fall, so chilly in some spots with a few mist and fog patches, but the winds generally easing as well. So as we start Tuesday morning, best of the sunshine really across eastern areas. Well, we'll hold on to the driest conditions for the longest, but otherwise through the day, further showers moving through, but they won't be as heavy or as frequent as what we'll see today. And the wind's not as strong, still breezy out there, but we lose those coastal gales. Otherwise, temperatures still around average, around 12 to 16 degrees. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 11 o'clock on Monday, 20th of October, live across the UK, Britain's newsroom, with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, the latest on Prince Andrew's police probe. The Met Police look into claims that the Prince asked a bodyguard to dig up dirt on his sex abuse accuser, Virginia Giuffre. Here is Andrew speaking about the Epstein scandal in 2019.
I've questioned myself as to why did I go, what was I doing, and was it the right thing to do?
Meanwhile, GB News has managed to obtain a copy of Virginia Giuffre's memoir ahead of publication. She accused Prince Andrew of having sex with her on 3 separate occasions when she was 17 years old, a claim Prince Andrew has always denied.
And the Reform UK have told GB News that 4 councillors have had the whip removed for bringing the party into disrepute.
That's right, 4 councillors suspended in Kent amid claims of treachery after a video was leaked to the left-wing Guardian newspaper. What does this mean for convincing us that reform has what it takes to run a council?
Well, let alone the country. Breaking news, millions of people have been hit by a major internet outage that's taken down dozens of websites, including Amazon and Snapchat. We're wondering if you have been impacted.
We need a job. We need a high-paying job. Now we're too hot to work anywhere in this country. Where are we going?
And it's a race against time as Paris police are up against the clock to find 8 pieces of priceless jewellery stolen in broad daylight from the world-famous Louvre Museum.
I think the question really for us is to make sure that the match can go ahead with all of the fans there.
That's the Energy Secretary Ed Miliband saying Aston Villa's stadium must not be a no-go area for Jews as pressure grows to lift the ban on Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. So that's a big blow for reform because Kent is their flagship council.
Yeah.
It's where they launched Doge to cut public waste and waste in town halls. To lose 4 councillors. I mean, was it a Tory council?
I think it was, yes. Well, I don't know if you saw the video emerged of their online meeting over the weekend where they were discussing budget pressures. Of course, they've come in hoping to make huge cuts to council waste and therefore potentially be able to reduce council tax. But it seems as though that they're finding that so much of council spending is taken up by things like adult social care, which they obviously can't cut. And so Reform Council is getting worried that they won't be able to cut council tax as a result.
A lot of Reform councils are going to have to raise council tax. So when they say they've had the whip withdrawn, that means effectively they've been suspended from the party, so they will sit as independents for the foreseeable future.
Well, it sounds as though they're being accused of leaking this video, which has been all over the internet over the weekend. We assume they've got some evidence for that. But we did have the leader of Reform Council there, Lyndon, I think she's called, on the programme a few weeks ago, talking about the pressures of the budget. So, well, we'll bring you the latest, so there you have it.
As always, love to hear what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/yoursay. But first, here's the news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom, just coming up to 4 minutes past 11. Well, pressure is mounting on Prince Andrew after his sex abuse accuser, Virginia Giuffre, has claimed his team tried to hire internet trolls to harass her in a smear campaign. In her memoir, Nobody's Girl, Giuffre alleges that Andrew even asked a bodyguard to dig up dirt on her, claims the Met Police says it's now looking into. The book, published months after Giuffre's death, details her alleged encounters with Prince Andrew and describes how she once met him dressed like Britney Spears at Ghislaine Maxwell's London flat. Calls are now growing for the royal family to go further, with calls for Parliament to strip him of dukedom. HMRC says they are working urgently to restore access to its website, one of thousands hit by a major internet outage affecting Amazon's cloud system. Apps including Snapchat, Duolingo and even UK banks like Lloyds and Halifax have all been caught up in the chaos. Amazon says it is dealing with significant error rates at one of its main data centres in the US, the tech behind millions of websites around the world. The outage has triggered a wave of complaints online today, with users warning the internet has gone dark. Well, GB News technology editor Aaron Brown says today's outage is a reminder of how dependent we've become on just a handful of cloud providers.
Amazon is the biggest, but there are other options around. You know, Google has its own, Microsoft has a huge play in this space as well. But we are reliant on these American tech companies. They're the ones with the resources. They're building these data centers. So there's definitely a risk in that. But I would say, in general, you know, when incidents like this happen, it's incredibly inconvenient. You know, people are left with access to these key services for a few hours. But, you know, taking a longer view over the last 20 years, overall, the internet has become more reliable, more secure.
President Donald Trump insists the Gaza ceasefire is still holding, despite Israel launching a wave of strikes on Hamas overnight. The Israeli military says it acted after terrorists fired an anti-tank missile and gunfire towards troops in Rafah, killing 2 soldiers. By nightfall, Israel said it has struck Hamas targets across Gaza, with hospital officials reporting at least 44 people dead. Hamas denies clashes in the area and says it remains committed to the ceasefire, but warns that continued strikes could trigger a total collapse of the peace deal. Here, grieving families have welcomed a full independent investigation into maternity and neonatal care units at Leeds teaching hospitals, where they say babies were failed and their concerns ignored. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says he was shocked by repeated maternity failures and the unacceptable response of the Trust, ordering what he calls an exceptional inquiry to uncover the truth. Parents say they were gaslit, dismissed and even blamed, demanding police involvement and calling for midwife Donna Ockenden, who led the Nottingham Review, to now chair their probe. Families say they feel relieved and vindicated that their fight for accountability could finally give a voice to women and babies who didn't survive. And the government has unveiled plans for new V-level qualifications designed to simplify what ministers call a confusing post-16 education system in England. They'll replace Level 3 BTECs and other technical courses, offering students a mix-and-match alternative to A-levels or T-levels. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, says V-levels will give young people a clearer vocational route into careers, while also tackling low GCSE reset pass rates with brand new qualifications. But sixth form leaders are warning the new system could leave gaps, saying that V-levels might not go far enough to replace existing BTECs. Those are your 11 o'clock headlines. I'll be back with you shortly. Now, though, it's over to Andrew and Miriam.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK on GB News with Andrew and Miriam.
Well, let's see what you've been saying on gbnews.com/your say. We've been talking about this internet outage, and Laura says Halifax bank phone lines are down. I've been trying all morning to find out my account balance and see how much damage I've done to it over the weekend. Maybe it's better not to find out, Laura. Margaret says, tell Andrew I'm back on Duolingo and I've just completed my Danish lesson.
very good, Margaret. Well done. I now know what it is and what it means. So
It's amazing. It's really increased people's interest in learning foreign languages, and you get little badges and stars. And
I should go on there.
You should.
I can't speak anything.
There you go. I think you can even learn Welsh. Martin says, I think we're sorely in need of an anti-Semitism law. I think there is a legal definition of anti-Semitism, actually. But Megan says the word phobia has been politicised. That's true. When I was a child, the only phobia was arachnophobia, not liking spiders.
Yeah, exactly. So it was all about spiders, wasn't it? Yeah, I know.
Not anything else. It's all too serious now.
It really is. Now, Prince Andrew, formerly known as the Duke of York, of course, faces a potential police investigation. The Met are looking into claims via an email that has come to light that he pressured or asked a Royal Protection Officer, paid for by the taxpayer, of course, to dig for dirt, really, on Virginia Giuffre.
Well, he could become the first member of the royal family to be investigated by police for more than 20 years.
Earlier we spoke to the author of Entitled, The Rise and Fall of the House of York, one Andrew Lowney. This is what he had to say.
It's a huge step to put a royal in prison. But we have charges for rape, for example, against the son of the Crown Princess in Norway. So, I mean, there are precedents there. You know, we are moving into new ground. But I think, you know, if a member of the royal family has committed an offence, then they should actually face the law in exactly the same way any of us would.
Talk now to the former Lib Dem Minister Norman Baker, who joins us now. Norman, who's written extensively about the royal family. Norman, morning to you. Do you think it's conceivable, as Andrew Lowney does, that Prince Andrew could end up with a criminal record and potentially even in prison if the police investigate and show he did ask a police officer to dig the dirt on Virginia Giuffre and also supplied her with her private... they don't call it a national insurance number, the social security number in America.
Well, look, I mean, if those stories are true, then Andrew is guilty, in my view, of, first of all, data protection breach, which is a serious matter, and secondly, a potential to corrupt a police officer, as I've set out in my column in the Daily Mail today. The problem is, well, first of all, I agree with Andrew that if someone is guilty of offences, then it shouldn't matter who they are. The law should be applied equally to anybody, including members of the royal family. The problem has been that the police, down the decades, the last 20, 30 years, have applied a very, very light touch to the royal family, even where there have been occasions when there's been clear evidence of potential illegality. They've done nothing about it. This is the same from whether it's Andrew giving a false address to Company's House, which I think has been on the record and admitted, to Michael Fawcett's letter offering honours and help with citizenship in return for money for Charles's charities. The police do nothing about these things, and I hope this time they will take the matter seriously.
Can I ask you just as well, you were a member of the House of Commons for many years. I think a lot of people will be surprised to know that as a parliamentarian, you cannot rise to your feet and just ask any old question you like about the royal family. There are all sorts of restrictions buried in that book called Erskine May, the Bible of Parliamentary Procedure. Can you explain what those restrictions are and why we have them?
Well, why we have them is more difficult to explain, Andrew, because he shouldn't be there. But in terms of what the restrictions are, this, of course, is convention rather than any law. And the convention is to show respect to and not to be objectionable to members of the royal family. Of course, MPs are required to take an oath to the monarch, his or her heirs and successors, before they can take their seat. And of course, the heirs and successors at the moment include Prince Andrew, who's 8th in line to the throne, and indeed Prince Harry. So the system does, frankly, need to be looked at again to make it more modern, overhauled. It's not quite true you can't see anything, because in my 18 years as a Member of Parliament, I was able to ask them questions, but you have to get them past what's called the table office, which is the authorities in the House who will agree to let you table questions or agree to let you have debates. I was able to have a debate on the royal family, the only MP to do so in my 18 years, but I had to link it back to the obscure Treasury paper from 1993 in order to get the debate before the House. And clearly that's not satisfactory. So, of course, it's not going to stop an MP standing up at Prime Minister's Question Time and asking a question about the royal family. Someone can stand up this week and say, shouldn't the Duke of York, as he was, Prince Andrew now, be subject to having his dukedom officially revoked? an MP could stand up and ask that. Now, it may be the Speaker will then say it's out of order, but there's nothing to stop you saying that on the floor of the Commons if you want to do so.
Norman, do you think there is a danger that we are taking a far too modern approach to this scandal and failing to separate the man, Andrew, who of course should be equal under the law to any other citizen in this country, and the title, the Duke of York, and the role in the hereditary monarchy? Because sure, those titles are part of all of our heritage and all of our constitution, and it's irrelevant, really, the nature of the person that holds that role.
Well, that's a defence for the hereditary system, which, of course, many people will agree with you should be maintained. I would only point out that you can have people who are in the royal family who do what many people regard as a very good job for the country. And I'm sure that was a view of most people regarding Queen Elizabeth II, who people didn't criticise because she had respect. But, you know, the respect comes from how individuals behave, not from the title they happen to get by right of birth.
Where do you see this going, Norman? Because it feels to me that there'll be more coming out of the Epstein book. But more emails coming out of Epstein, and I'm told that the reason he surrendered and gave in about his title on Friday was because he wasn't able to reassure the King that there wasn't more to come.
Well, I think there will be more to come because US Congress is determined to release as much as possible. There's a cross-party, I mean, there's not much cross-party in America at the moment, but there's a bipartisan desire to make sure that the Epstein matter is brought before the public. And I think that Republicans and Democrats both share that objective. And that being the case, more will come out from Epstein. And I'm sure that was a consideration in the King deciding that Andrew should have his titles removed. Although I should say they're not quite removed. What they are now is put in abeyance because he could actually at some point reclaim and reuse the dukedom. And that's why some people are saying that there should be a parliamentary act brought in to make sure that cannot happen and his dukedom is formally revoked. It's not being formally revoked at the moment. Where it's going, I think, is more of the same. And clearly the press have got their teeth into this issue once again, big time. I'm doing several interviews today. I mean, and I'm not alone. I mean, so it's Andrew Lally and others. And it's going to keep going on. And of course, Virginia Giuffre's book is out tomorrow, which will keep the story going even further. I feel a bit sorry for the King because he's actually doing something important this week, which is praying with the Pope on Wednesday, which is actually quite an important matter, and bringing, if you like, the Protestant and the Catholic traditions together. And that shouldn't be overwhelmed by what's happening with Andrew, but I feel it will be.
All right, very interesting. Norman Baker, Norman, tell us the name of your book that's coming out.
It's called Royal Mint National Debt. It's out next month.
Very interesting. We'll get you back on to talk about it. That's Norman Baker.
And Andrew, on the King's visit to the Vatican, praying with the Pope.
First time since the Reformation,
it's
Henry
true.
VIII.
But Tim Stanley has written an as ever very funny column in the Telegraph on this, saying that haven't they realised that the Reformation was a long time ago and that the Catholics have ceased to care and the Anglicans have simply ceased? Is what you wrote.
Okay. Cease to exist.
Rude, but very funny.
Well, they now have their marvellous new
Archbishop of Canterbury, who more than half of the Anglican Communion have rejected. So anyway,
and it took him 11 months to appoint her.
I know.
I just knew it'd be a woman, didn't you?
Oh yes, absolutely. It was inevitable. I'm afraid they've gone woke.
Wokery.
We should say, of course, in relation to that last story, that Prince Andrew has previously and continues to deny any wrongdoing.
Very welcome. I was just about to say Your Royal Highness. We don't have to call him that anymore, do we?
The artist formerly known as Prince.
Yes, we'd be delighted to have you on TV to come and talk about it. Now, moving on, Reform UK has confirmed to GB News that 4 of its councillors in Kent have had their whip removed. They've effectively been suspended from the party. They've been accused of bringing the party into disrepute. Our GB News particular Chris Hope joins us. Chris, is this a significant moment for Reform? This is their flagship county council. They won it only last May. They were going to cut costs. They were going to get rid of all the spending on diversity and equality, all the woke stuff, if you like, and they've been struggling. And now this. What's happened?
Well, exactly that. It is worrying for them. They recognise they are the flagship council. They're Nigel Farage's local council, but it appears they are falling out. Some video leaked to The Guardian over the weekend had a big row involving Linda Kamkaran, who is the leader of Kent Council. She was trying to say we need to avoid putting up our council tax by 5% next April. By the way, lots of people are getting their council tax put up by 5%, not just reform councils, next April. She said on the video, I'm not an autocrat or dictator. She said, I'll make decisions that may well not be liked. And she says the best thing we can do, she said on this video, is show that reform can run something as big as Kent County Council. And the bad news for her is that video was leaked. It was a series of boxes, like a Zoom call, so around I think 12 faces on there, and her trying to keep control of the meeting and threatening to mute somebody. And now, after that leaking, we are told that 4 councillors have been suspended: Paul Thomas, Oliver Bradshaw, Bill Barrett and Maxine Fothergill. They've had their whip suspended, Reform say, pending investigation following evidence that has brought the party into disrepute. I think it looks to me like a strong leader trying to control a meeting, and it was difficult. There's claims here of some backbenchers not being told about what to do next. And the Reform have tried to defend the leader here, saying that they have a laser focused on achieving their electoral promises. This can sometimes lead to robust debate. But of course, the rival parties are piling in. Labour Party says moments ago that Reform are fighting like rats in a sack. The Lib Dems say that Reform's meetings are starting to sound more like an episode of The Traitors. All that's missing is for Claudia Winkleman to appear and ask who they're going to banish next. So the other parties are enjoying this discomfort. But I think she's right, the leader of Kent Council, Linda Kemkaran. People are looking at Kent Council. There are 10 councils controlled by Reform UK. The flagship council is Kent Council, and they have to be seen to be doing the right thing. She's trying to bring down council tax. Others in her group are saying, please tell us first or talk to us more. And that's led to falling out in a Zoom call. Maybe the conclusion might be, don't have these meetings on Zoom, have them behind closed doors and agree what to say.
Fascinating.
Well, Andrew, you were saying that this is only really a big deal because it is the flagship council. I mean, there are 19,000 councillors in the UK.
Yeah.
Surely councillors must lose the whip all the time over various misdemeanours, large and small. But
it is because it is Kent. That is their big one.
Yeah.
Now, this is a Labour Party spokesman said Reform's leader in Kent said that Reform councils were the biggest advocate for what a Nigel Farage government would look like. Well, now we know what that means. Complete chaos.
For all, Farage's talk on cutting council waste hasn't come close. Now members of his flagship council are fighting like rats in a sack. Reform is in meltdown and it's local residents who will pay the price. Have you seen the clip, Andrew? Because
I have.
Yeah, it's fairly anodyne, really. I mean,
I just think that's the conversations
apart from
councillors
one
have all
swear
the
word
time.
that's beeped out, I'm not quite sure what's.
Don't councillors argue about
people disagree
budgets the whole time, and that's the whole point. That's why you elect them.
That's great. I mean, it is not a good thing to have leaked the private meeting. Obviously, that is a reason for suspension.
To the
but the meeting itself was,
which is a hostile.
Yeah, you wonder how they got their hands on it. But anyway.
Right.
Well, up next, if you're struggling to get online this morning, you're not alone because millions of people have been hit by a huge outage. We'll have the latest advice.
This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show on GBNews, and I still can't work my laptop.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Good morning, it's 25 past 11. You're watching Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
We've got the panel back, former Labour Vice Matthew Talbot and commentator Piers Pottinger. Gentlemen, I have to tell you, my jaw dropped when I read... Now, Nicolas Sarkozy was convicted, the former French president, of corruption. And I thought, well, there'll be endless appeals, endless appeals. He's eating porridge in solitary confinement in jail, Piers.
Yeah.
Probably
a French president of the Republic.
Yeah.
He is not the first French president, former French president, to be done for corruption or fraud. They all seem to have a habit of doing some slightly strange
Jacques Chirac,
things.
I remember,
and
was
he's
done.
got 5 years, and he's 70.
Amazing.
And, I mean, it again shows that being a republic doesn't necessarily mean you avoid the problems of having a monarchy.
No.
Yes. And a monarchy would, you know, some of these presidents in these countries are pretty dubious. I mean, only recently, Ireland, which is about to have a presidential election, 2 of the former candidates, the front runners, both dropped out. But one was Conor McGregor, a martial arts man, who's also been charged with all kinds of stuff recently.
Yep.
And Michael Flatley, a tap dancer, or man who's decommissioned his arms.
I'm a great fan of
dances like that. Yeah.
Extraordinary. You're making the case, by the sound of this, Piers, that's for very good reason why we need to keep the monarchy, because what's been going on with French history.
Well, absolutely, yes. I mean, you know, but... maybe the people who've been to the Louvre have hidden the stuff with Sarkozy. I don't know. I mean, France, we all think this country is in a terrible state with our government, which it is.
Yeah.
But things in France are really bad. And it's not good for Europe. And again, when Starmer wants us so much to go back into Europe and cosy up to these people, why?
Yeah.
France is in a much bigger mess. Many of the countries in the European Union are financially really up against it, and they have their own problems, and that's why they're all being so vicious towards us, which they still are.
Yeah. What do you think, Matthew? Were you surprised that he went in actually behind bars?
Yeah, I was. I think with these sorts of trials, no matter what country they're in, you know, they tend to end up with it suspended and whatever. And this sort of happened. I think in 2021 he was on corruption charges.
Yeah.
And I think he got 3 years. He had to do 1 basically in home confinement and in whatever grand he no doubt lives in. And then it was commuted to sort of 6 months. So I was surprised, 1, that this made it the full way, but certainly that he's behind bars. I do think who cares that he's writing a book? Like, there's a long list, even in this country, a history of politicians that go behind bars and write these dreadfully awful books. It's really hard.
It's called How to Decorate a Small Room.
Yes, right.
Well, they must do something when they're behind bars.
I mean, also Marine Le Pen is herself going to be banned from standing because she was found guilty of using misappropriating funds from the EU, of course. Hundreds of thousands of euros she trousered for her own use, apparently. So, I mean, they're all at it over there. Totally. And far from cozying up to these criminals, I would suggest Starmer and his mob try to focus a bit more on trying to turn around this economy, which there's no hope of that happening in the short term.
Well, shall we move on to a British scandal? Of course, the so-called Chinese spy scandal rumbles on, and we're here today reporting the Telegraph that the Commons Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, is considering tightening Chinese access to Parliament after the fallout over the spy case. Matthew, do you think that's fair?
I mean, there's always going to be people who are caught up in this that are perfectly fine, upstanding people. I think the problem is that if there was an Olympic sport for spying, the Chinese would win gold. So, therefore, you've got to be cautious. And I think Lindsay Hoyle's obviously furious because it's happened under his watch.
I mean, just remind people that a parliamentary researcher working in the Commons, working for a very senior Tory MP, we were expecting him to be charged with spying for China. And with a chum who used to work with in a Chinese school in Beijing.
Who we read over the weekend was found at an airport coming back from China with a suitcase full of cash.
Yeah, thousands.
This is like something out of a cartoon. This is so obvious. Any jury would go, right, well, you know,
links to
where the cap
who are very
fits.
senior in the Chinese Communist Party.
No, but also you've got here, the reason Lindsay Hoyle is doing this, one of the reasons is that recently, very recently, 30 Chinese journalists applied for passes, parliamentary passes, which gives them the freedom to walk around unrestricted all around Parliament. 30 journalists.
That's a lot.
And it turns out that it was very hard to actually verify that these were real journalists.
It wasn't very subtle, was it?
It wasn't very subtle. It's a little bit like their embassy.
Do you think we've been far too naive when it comes to the Chinese?
Of course we have. And, I mean, when it comes to the embassy, the Chinese are already interfering with our embassy. They're turning in Beijing. They play around with the water supply when they feel annoyed by something we've said about them. And now they want to have this. And they said the other day, this was something that was barely picked up. They said, if we don't basically approve the embassy, there will be consequences. How threatening and sinister a remark is that?
It was actually talking of subtleties. That is very much the way that the spying goes over there. The culture of China is very much, you will pass on. It is your civic duty to pass on information that might be useful to the government. And therefore you see a lot of these fake jobs that lure people in from other countries, such as the UK, under the guise of consultancies or whatever else. And they're very good at it. Listen, and this is why we end up in situations such as this. But it's deeply embarrassing. I think the Deputy National Security Advisor has clearly been thrown under the bus.
Yes, he has. To save Jonathan Powell, who is the National
And I think it speaks of actually both conspiracy and cock-up. I think it's people who are clearly hopeless and haven't been able to get this over the line. The fella at the DPP, the current DPP, has so much to answer for.
Yeah, but we shouldn't get this embassy. Not only would it be enormous, the deep basement that is going to be in there, the suspicion is it will have all sorts of ways of getting into our cable network and learning even more about this.
And when I lived in Tower Hamlets, the council rejected the planning permission for the embassy on very good grounds, I think, and I don't know what deal has been done, but it's a very bad idea. Particularly, why have they spied literally, for want of a better term, the old Royal Mint building, deep in the heart of our financial district? What could they possibly want in that part of the world, Andrew? You know, it's very naive, but you have to wonder whether we're in hock in a way, because for there to be consequences, what does that mean? This is an economy we clearly want some level of access to. China, for me, is clearly the greatest power in the world at the moment.
And it's our third largest trading partner, which we can't ignore. But we've got ourselves into this situation, and only at the weekend they wanted to buy Thames Water, they've announced. Now, we already know they like turning off and on the water for political reasons. I think it would be insanity for us to let our capital's water supply Dubai be in the hands of the Chinese government. And surely, for once, we put our foot down and say, no, it's not a business proposition because the company's so indebted, so much. It can only be a political proposition. That's the only reason and
we should
motivation.
take lessons from who owned British Steel and how that continued to be run into the ground. It's all of us that pay as taxpayers to end up bailing out these.
We're in total agreement on that.
Well, on that note...
Yes.
Do not do that again. That is Piers Pottinger and Matthew Talbot, and we're going to get a 60-second news update with Sam Francis.
Hello, very good morning to you. Leading the news this hour, the Met Police say they are actively investigating claims that Prince Andrew passed Virginia Giuffre's personal details to a bodyguard to dig up dirt for a smear campaign. Her posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, also alleges his team tried to hire internet trolls to harass her. Pressure is now mounting on the royal family to strip Andrew of his dukedom after he dropped the title on Friday. A major Amazon outage is knocking some of the world's biggest apps offline, including Snapchat, Duolingo and even HMRC's website. Banks like Halifax and Lloyds also reportedly affected. Amazon says it is working to restore services, but for now, much of the internet remains offline. President Trump insists the Gaza ceasefire is still in place, hours after Israeli strikes killed at least 40 people. Israel says it resumed enforcement after an anti-tank attack in Rafah, but Hamas accuses Israel of violations. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's envoy and Jared Kushner are heading to the region. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has blamed Brexit for stunting Britain's growth and warned it's still dragging down productivity. It marks her clearest claim so far of Brexit's economic damage, setting the stage for tough choices in next month's budget. And families in Leeds are welcoming an independent inquiry into repeated maternity failures at the city's NHS Trust. They're calling for police involvement and for midwife Donna Ockenden to lead the review. And the government is unveiling V-Levels, new technical courses to replace BTECs and simplify post-16 education. Ministers are promising clearer routes into work, but colleges warn they may not fill the gap. Those are your 11:30 headlines. I'll be back at midday.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. And coming up at noon, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Nana. What's coming up on the show today, folks?
A fascinating day of news. It's not our biggest story, but one that I'm just obsessed with today is this heist on the Louvre.
Oh,
I mean,
incredible.
what on earth has gone on there? We're going to be live on the ground in Paris, where apparently they've found one of the crowns nearby the Louvre, worn by the wife of Napoleon III. 1,000 diamonds encrusted in this crown, just found on the ground outside.
Do you think they dropped it?
Could have been while making a quick escape, or maybe they picked up the wrong... I mean, why would you steal priceless, unsellable things from the world's biggest museum?
Well, you could break it up, though, couldn't you? So you could take the diamonds out and break them up and sell them.
We talked to a Paris journalist and we said, what is the theory? Is it going to disappear into a private collection of a very rich person, never to be seen again, or is it going to be melted down? The theory in Paris is it will be melted down.
Of course it would be.
That would be very sad.
Very sad.
Because I was at the Natural History Museum the other day and they had this big chunk of, like, this emerald, the biggest chunk of emerald ever seen. I thought to myself, God, if anyone came in here and just smash it up and make loads of emeralds.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, very excitingly as well, Richard Tice is going to be on the programme because, of course, 4 councillors in Kent have been suspended.
In their flagship borough.
Which
a
is...
Jackie Weaver moment.
Yeah.
Jackie Weaver.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of the things. I mean, Reform has got to prove that it can do grown-up government.
Yeah, it does.
And there are going to be some big tests ahead of the May elections. So this is going to be one of them. Of course, they do have quite a large majority in Kent, so losing 4 councillors isn't the end of the world for their stability. But big questions there.
What was the big deal about the bit of the video we saw? It didn't seem like any great shakes.
I think it was the leaking that
arguing over cutting money.
Yeah, the problem is if you're going to leak an internal meeting, that's sort of... we should also say the resignation of one of these members of the grooming gang inquiry. Really serious story. We're talking to the Shadow Home Secretary about that.
Right.
Is this grooming gang inquiry going to be worth the paper it's written on?
Is it ever going to happen?
That too. Well, all that and more to come at midday, but still on Britain's Newsroom.
A global internet outage, not outrage, outage, has left millions of people unable to access sites such as Zoom, Snapchat, as well as several banking apps will have all the advice you need.
And as Detective Tom Harwood, aka Poirot, just mentioned, the race is on for police in Paris as they're on the hunt for thieves who stole 8 pieces of jewellery from the Louvre Museum in broad daylight. Stick with us for the latest. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, very good day to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, for some parts of Scotland, there will be some decent dry weather through today, but for many, it is looking pretty unsettled. Heavy, thundery showers and some gusty winds because we have low pressure firmly in control across the country, which is why there's going to be plenty of wet and windy weather around. The heaviest showers are likely to be across southern parts. Here we could see totals of 30, 40 millimetres perhaps building up at times, and the risk of some heavy thundery downpours, hail, lightning, that kind of thing mixed in, as well as some gusty winds towards the south. Like I said, across parts of Scotland, some drier weather, though the far north of Scotland having some persistent rain. Temperatures are around average for the time of year, always feeling fresher when you get those strong gusty winds, particularly towards the south and also towards the far north. Across Shetland and perhaps parts of Orkney, it is going to be a wet end to the day with persistent rain, strong winds as well. Also down the western side of Scotland, some persistent rain. Otherwise, largely dry, like it will be through much of the day for many parts of Scotland. Some drier weather across central parts of Northern Ireland, but across the bulk of England and Wales it's staying pretty cloudy, only limited breaks in the cloud and plenty of those showers continuing for a little while yet. They are going to ease a little bit as we go overnight, but not clearing away entirely. So still a few showers to watch out for here and there, and some more persistent rain feeding in from northwest Scotland, pushing its way into central parts as well. We will get some clearer skies across parts of eastern Scotland, down into northeast England, across some central southern parts of England. And where we get those, could be a bit of fog around perhaps, but some generally murky conditions as well for many of us overnight. And then tomorrow, showery rain pushing its way from west to east. It's not looking as intense, not as frequent as the heavy showers that we're seeing through today, though across Scotland it is looking a bit wetter than today. Most places though having a greater chance of seeing some brightness breaking through, and so it may feel just a little bit warmer.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwir, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 20 to 12. You're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So 2 female members of the House of Lords have launched an attempt to overturn the Commons' plans to decriminalise abortion.
Well, opponents fear that the change would lead to more women performing dangerous late-term abortions at home.
The new law would mean that women who terminate their pregnancy outside the rules would no longer be at risk of being investigated by the police.
Well, joining us now is the Conservative MP for Reigate, Rebecca Paul. Rebecca, good morning. Thank you for coming on the show this morning. Now, back in July, it was hugely controversial when a number of MPs laid an amendment in actually the crime and policing bill, so nothing to do with abortion, to decriminalise all abortion to term. How did you feel when that went through the House of Commons, and what do you think the next step is for this bill in the House of Lords?
I was really shocked. It took us all by surprise. We didn't know this was happening. It was pushed through in a crime and policing bill, and we actually had only 46 minutes, I think it was, to debate it. And I remember my speech being cut short. So I think it's absolutely horrifying that something so significant, a biggest change to abortion law, can go through on the hoof in that way.
46 minutes is frankly offensive, Rebecca.
I agree. And a lot of us didn't even know it was coming. So I think it was only a few days before that I realised that this amendment had been tabled, and I spent that weekend trying to get the message out. And one of the really important things that everyone needs to remember is that it quickly becomes ideological. So people think this is about those people that support abortion and those people that don't support abortion. So I support abortion, but I also want abortion to be done in a safe way. And the challenge with decriminalisation of abortion in combination with a pills by post scheme is that we basically lose the deterrent for women to not intentionally mislead on the phone around the term of their pregnancy. And also we lose the deterrent for males that might actually coerce their partners or women that are sex trafficked into performing late-term abortions. So I very much support abortion. I would fight for those rights. I would be marching on the streets for those rights. But I recognise that decriminalisation, particularly in combination with a very dangerous pill by post scheme, is frankly reckless and dangerous. We would never give chemotherapy pills to a cancer patient without expecting a doctor to check them over, make sure they've got cancer in the first place and make sure it's appropriate. But that's exactly what we are doing with women seeking an abortion.
So can you explain how this pills by post scheme has come into force? Because it hasn't always been the case that women could have an abortion without a face-to-face appointment with a clinician.
That's exactly right. So during the pandemic, it was recognised that it was very difficult for women to access abortion. And so I can almost understand during the pandemic why temporary provisions were put in place to make it a bit easier. So women were able to phone up over the phone and have an over the telephone conversation about where they were in their pregnancy, and then the pills would be sent in the mail. But then what happened is once the pandemic was over, I think there were groups that obviously have been pushing for increased access, and it was actually shockingly made permanent after the pandemic, which I think is unforgivable of Parliament, because it really is, it's a dangerous, unsafe way to deliver healthcare. And I do understand why they did it in the pandemic, but it should have been put to a stop in 2022. And one of the things we're seeing, one of the arguments we'll often hear from people supporting decriminalisation of abortion and that support pills by post is that there have been increasing numbers of women being prosecuted for late-term abortion. But if you actually look at the facts, the only reason we have had more women end up in court over this is as a result of the pills by post scheme. So rather than addressing the actual root cause, which is the pill by post scheme, we have got groups pushing to decriminalise abortion and further increase that access and push the boundaries. And I think in this country, I think we're largely comfortable with where we've got to with abortion law. It's really difficult. It's a really sensitive topic. Lots of people will have different views on where the line should sit. But I think we are in a good place right now, and I think groups are taking advantage and trying to push to a more extreme position that most people in this country do not want. They do not want to see the decriminalisation of late-term abortions.
Rebecca Paul, MP for Reigate, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It came from nowhere, that, didn't it?
Well, it didn't. The same Labour MPs, every single time there is a crime and justice bill, try and put down this amendment to decriminalise abortion to birth, but it's never got through before.
I see.
Because obviously the parliamentary makeup has changed since the last election.
Yes, well, they have a huge majority.
Absolutely.
Over 400
I think
MPs.
only 1% of the public support decriminalisation of all abortions. So to force it through in 46 minutes was quite undemocratic in my view.
Now, up next, we're going to have the latest on the global internet outage affecting millions of people. We're wondering, potentially, could it be a cyber attack? We'll have all the advice you need.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's an unsettled picture across much of the Mediterranean over the next couple of days, with heavy showers around, particularly across northern parts of Spain and Portugal, southern parts of France, northern parts of Italy, perhaps even some snow over the Alps too. Southern parts of Italy, parts of Greece and northern parts of Turkey faring better in terms of some sunny spells, and temperatures quite widely in the high teens or low 20s for many, but with a bit more dry weather around as we head through the second half of the week. Those temperatures on the rise into the low, potentially mid-20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
News channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, and millions of people have been hit by a global internet outage this morning.
So Zoom, banking apps and many other services have been struck down.
Web developer Adam Lim joins us now. Adam, we understand this is a problem with Amazon Web Services. Tell us why that has such implications for ordinary internet users.
Well, fortunately, the outage has been fully mitigated by Amazon, so it's no longer an outage, they're just getting through the backlog. But the issue fundamentally is that Amazon Web Services hosts about 30% of all cloud computing services. So when you hear that something's on the cloud, that's usually what it means. But effectively what it is that Amazon allows you to rent servers from them so that you don't have to purchase your own. And this is great for a lot of big businesses, especially if they have to handle large volumes of data like banking services. But what happened was effectively their domain name service, which is what takes something like facebook.com and turns it into an address for a server. It was misconfigured, so all of the people who were sending requests through to one of their database services, they weren't getting anything back because they couldn't resolve where the server was, meaning that all of these big businesses with all of their data, they just couldn't get any response from the server.
Thank you so much, Adam Lim, and it's good to hear that it's all back on again now.
Except my laptop, still broken.
It's going to take a bit more work. Well, that's it from Britain's Newsroom. We'll be back tomorrow.
Up next, it's Good Afternoon Britain, of course, with Tom and Nana. See you tomorrow.
That's right, we'll be live at the Louvre as we try and work out exactly what went on in this audacious heist.
And Rachel Reeves is in DC talking down.
Northern
UK blaming everything on Brexit. Stay tuned, that's coming up after your weather.
Yeah. Cool.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning and welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Well, we have blustery, heavy showers across England and Wales today, with coastal gales in the south, but drier and brighter across Scotland. So we have low pressure dominating, bringing frequent showers across England and Wales. These are going to be heavy, containing the odd rumble of thunder and hail. Drier to the north of that into northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland with sunshine, but more persistent rain across the far north into Shetland. Otherwise, temperatures still around average for the time of year, but underneath all these heavy downpours and coastal gales in the south, probably feeling pretty unpleasant. So as we end Monday evening, we still hold on to this band of rain across Shetland. Otherwise, across much of Scotland, seeing some early evening sunshine. Likewise for Northern Ireland as well. Still a few showers around, but most of the showers still persisting across much of England and Wales. So they are still going to be heavy through this evening. So do take care during rush hour, as there could be some difficult driving conditions. The area of low pressure will shift its way eastwards though, so most of those showers will start easing away. We'll see some clear spells as we go Monday night into Tuesday morning. Then a focus for showers, more so coming into western areas. But under the clear skies, we may see temperatures fall, so chilly in some spots with a few mist and fog patches, but the winds generally easing as well. So as we start Tuesday morning, best of the sunshine really across eastern areas. Well, we'll hold on to the driest conditions for the longest, but otherwise through the day, further showers moving through, but they won't be as heavy or as frequent as what we'll see today. And the wind's not as strong, still breezy out there, but we lose those coastal gales. Otherwise, temperatures still around average, around 12 to 16 degrees. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude